listen to this alone in the dark. I'm saying that because the last time I ignored that feeling, I ended up standing in my own apartment hallway with my keys in my hand, trying to remember how to breathe like a normal person while something watched me from the far end, like it had been waiting for me to get home. It was a weeknight, and everything was normal in the way it always is when you come back tired. The building quiet, but not empty. The usual hum from the vending machine downstairs. The faint thump of someone's TV through the walls. And that stale, warm air in the corridor that never really changes. I remember unlocking my door and going inside, dropping my bag, turning on the kitchen light, and hearing my upstairs neighbor's shower start up. So I knew I wasn't alone in the building. I even talked to myself like I always do when I'm exhausted. Food first? And I opened the fridge and stood there too long looking at nothing. The only thing that felt even slightly off was my front door not clicking all the way into the frame when it shut behind me. It wasn't open, but it didn't sound right. I walked back and pushed it, and it clicked like it should, and I told myself it was just the old latch. I went back to the kitchen, and the second I put a pan on the stove, I heard something in the hallway outside my door. Not a knock, not footsteps, more like a soft drag, like a sleeve brushing the wall as someone passed too close. I froze with my hand on the burner knob and listened. Nothing else. No elevator, no doors. I forced myself to move again, and I actually laughed under my breath because I didn't want to be the kind of person who jumps at hallway noise. And I said, "It's fine." Like saying it out loud could make it true. I tried to ignore it, but I kept getting that feeling that the air in my apartment had shifted, like it was heavier closer to the front door. I turned the burner off without cooking anything and went to the peephole. The hallway light outside my door was on, the same yellow it always is, and the carpet runner was empty in both directions. I stood there longer than I should have, watching for movement, and that's when the elevator at the end of the hall made its little ding, but the doors didn't open. The sound came, and the light above it blinked once, and then it went dead again, like it had never happened. I remember thinking maybe there was a power hiccup, so I checked my lights, and everything in my apartment was still on. I leaned closer to the peephole, and that's when I noticed something else that made my stomach go tight. The hallway looked wrong in a small way I couldn't explain at first, like the shadows were sitting in places they didn't belong. The ceiling lights were on, but the far end of the hall near the stairwell was darker than it should have been, as if something was blocking the light but not showing itself. I backed away from the door, and my hand went to the lock again, and I whispered to myself without meaning to, "What is that?" I told myself it was nothing, and I was making shapes out of shadows, so I did the stupid thing and unlocked the door to check, because part of me wanted proof I was being dramatic. I opened it just a few inches, keeping the chain on, and the hallway air came in cold and dry, like it had been sitting somewhere that didn't have heat. I looked left and right through the crack, and the hall was empty. But that darker patch near the stairwell wasn't a patch anymore when I stared hard at it. It was a shape, tall and straight, too narrow to be a person standing naturally, like it was pressed thin, and it wasn't moving the way a person moves. It was still, like a cutout, but it had depth, and I could see that it was facing me even from that distance. I closed the door fast, not slamming it, just shutting it like I was trying not to draw attention, and I locked everything with shaking hands. For a few seconds, I stood there with my back against the door, trying to calm down, telling myself it was just someone in dark clothes by the stairwell. But the building rules are simple. You can usually hear someone out there. A cough, a phone, keys, anything. This was silent. Then, from right outside my door, I heard the softest sound, like someone exhaling against the wood, like a mouth close enough that the breath could warm the paint. I didn't move. I couldn't. I stared at the deadbolt as if I could will it to become thicker. I tried to listen for footsteps walking away, and instead I heard a slow scrape, gentle, patient, traveling across the door like a fingertip dragging from the top down. It stopped at the peephole, and the scrape circled it once, like it knew exactly where I was looking from. I stepped back, and my heel hit my bag, and the sound was small, but in that moment it felt like I'd shouted. The hallway went quiet again, and then I heard something that made my mouth go dry. A voice right against the door, not loud, not angry, just close and certain. "I see you." I covered my mouth with my hand because I was about to make a sound I didn't want to make. I didn't answer. I didn't even breathe right. I waited for it to knock or to test the handle, because that's what a person would do. But it didn't. It just stayed there, and I could feel it as clearly as if it had weight on the other side, as if the door was bowing inward a little. I backed into my living room, keeping my eyes on the door, and I grabbed my phone from the coffee table with fingers that didn't want to work. I tried to dial, and my screen lit up, and the moment it did, every light in my apartment blinked once, like someone had tapped the power, and then they steadied. The phone stayed on, but the signal icon dropped to nothing, and I remember thinking that can't happen inside my own place. I whispered without thinking, "No, no." And I held the phone up like it could protect me. I didn't want to stay by the front door, but I also didn't want to go deeper into the apartment and lose track of it. I moved sideways into the kitchen, keeping my body turned toward the entryway, and I watched the bottom gap of the door, waiting to see feet. Instead, I saw a shadow, thick and dark, pouring under the door like the hall light had been blocked completely. The peephole went black too, like someone had covered it with a palm. Then the chain on the door twitched once, barely, and I heard that same scraping sound again, but this time it was on the lock itself, like a nail running around the deadbolt. I wanted to run. I wanted to get out, but getting out meant opening that door. I tried to think of another way, the fire escape in the bedroom, the bathroom vent, anything, and I hated myself for even thinking like that, because it made it feel real. I went to the bedroom anyway, stepping fast but trying to keep quiet, and I grabbed the little baseball bat I keep in the closet, not because I thought it would help, but because my hands needed something. I went to the window and pulled the curtain aside, and the street outside looked normal. Cars passing, someone walking a dog, normal life, and it made what was happening inside feel even worse, like I was trapped behind glass where no one could hear me. I tried to force the window up, and it moved, but the moment it opened 2 inches, I heard that voice again, not at the front door this time, but inside the apartment, right behind me in the dark corner by the closet. "Don't." I spun around so hard my shoulder hit the wall, and that's when I saw it clearly for the first time. Not as a shadow at the end of the hall, not as breath on the door, but standing in my bedroom like it had always been there. It was taller than my door frame, and it didn't bend. Its body was narrow, stretched, like someone pulled a person thin and forgot to put the depth back. The surface wasn't skin. It looked like matte black fabric that drank the light. But it wasn't fabric, because it moved like it was alive, rippling in slow waves without wind. Where its face should have been, there was a flat, dark plane, but in the center of it, there was a vertical line, like a seam, and it opened a little, and I understood in a physical way that it was looking at me through that opening. It didn't rush me. It didn't need to. It just stood there, filling the corner, and it tilted slightly like it was curious that I could see it now. I couldn't make my legs work, and the bat felt like a toy in my hands. I backed away from it, and it didn't step forward. But the room changed anyway. like it was moving without moving. The air got colder and thicker, and the window I'd cracked started to slide down on its own, slow, steady, until it shut with a soft click. I stared at the window latch like I could argue with it, and I said out loud, "What do you want?" The seam in its face opened a little wider, and the sound that came out wasn't loud, but it hit me in the chest like pressure. "Stay." I shook my head hard, like no could be a physical thing, and I turned to run for the bathroom because it has a lock and no windows, and it felt like the safest room, even though I knew that was just me grabbing at anything. I sprinted down the short hallway inside my apartment, and I heard nothing behind me. No chase, no footsteps, just that awful quiet, like the sound had been taken away. I slammed into the bathroom and locked it, and I pressed my ear to the door, waiting for a handle jiggle. Nothing. I backed up and looked around like I could find a weapon, like a towel rack could save me. The bathroom light flickered, and I heard the fan kick on by itself, the vent whining like it was struggling, and then the mirror above the sink fogged in one slow breath, like someone exhaled against it from the other side. Words started to form in the fog, not written with a finger, more like the fog itself was clearing in lines, and I watched them appear one by one. I am here. I stepped back until my spine hit the tub, and I raised the bat like I'd swing at the mirror, and my voice came out thin. "Stop." The mirror didn't shatter, the lights didn't go out. It just stayed fogged. And then the seam-like shape appeared in the reflection behind me, tall and straight, even though there was nothing behind me in the bathroom to reflect. In the glass, it was standing right at the door, and in real life, I could still hear nothing on the other side. I turned fast, and the bathroom door was still closed and locked, but the handle began to turn anyway, slow, controlled, like someone was testing how far it could go without breaking anything. I put my hand on the lock, pushing it back like that mattered, and the door didn't open, but the wood bowed inward slightly, like something was leaning its full weight against it without making a sound. The seam voice came again, not from the door, not from the mirror, but from the air inside the bathroom with me. "You saw me." I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was tight and hot like I'd swallowed something sharp. The door stopped bowing and went still, and for one hopeful second, I thought it had left. Then the bathroom light turned off. Not flickered, not dimmed, just off, like the switch had been flipped by a hand I couldn't see. I stood there in full darkness, bat raised, listening for my own breathing, and I realized the fan was still on, whining, pushing air that smelled like cold dust. Something brushed my forearm, not a hit, just a touch, like a sleeve passing by, and the hair on my arms lifted so fast it hurt. I swung the bat once into the dark, and it hit nothing. I tried to move toward the door, and my foot caught on something that wasn't there before, like a strip of heavy cloth on the tile, and it tightened around my ankle. I stumbled, and my shoulder hit the sink, and the pain was real and grounding, and it made me panic, because I understood then that this thing didn't have to show itself to control me. I grabbed at my ankle with both hands, and felt something smooth and cold, not rope, not fabric, more like a flat band that tightened when I pulled. I whispered, "Please," and the answer came right next to my ear, close enough that I felt the air move. "Stay with me." The bathroom light came back on, and I was on the floor with my back against the tub, and the band around my ankle wasn't visible, but I could feel it, tight as a grip. In the mirror, the seam in the dark face was behind me again, and in the reflection, it leaned down slightly, like it was lowering itself to my level, and I couldn't see eyes, but I could feel its attention like heat. I tried to reach my phone in my pocket, and my arm wouldn't lift the way it should, like the air had thickened into something I had to push through. The lock on the bathroom door clicked open by itself, slow and careful, and the door swung inward a few inches. Nothing came through. It didn't need to. It was already here, already deciding what rooms I could have, what movements I could make. And the worst part was how calm it felt, like this was not a fight, just a choice it had made. I remember staring at the crack in the door and thinking that the hallway outside my bathroom was my own hallway, but it might as well have been miles away, and I heard the building elevator ding again out in the corridor, like the world was still doing normal things. I tried one last time to stand, to drag myself out, and the band around my ankle tightened until my foot went numb, and the seam voice came again, patient and certain. "Don't leave." I stopped moving because the pain and the pressure told me it had all the control, and I sat there on the tile, listening to the fan whine and the elevator ding and my own breath. And I understood that it was going to keep me there as long as it wanted, not attacking, not rushing, just present, aware, holding the space like it belonged to it now. If you're listening to this, then you know what it feels like when a place you've lived in stops feeling like yours, and you start noticing every quiet part of the room like it's watching you back. And I need you to understand that it didn't feel like it followed me from somewhere else. It felt like it had always been close, and it only showed itself when I saw it. So if you just heard a soft drag on your wall, or a breath where there shouldn't be one, don't tell yourself it's nothing, because that's exactly what I did. If you have a horror story of your own, please feel free to drop it in the comments section. You never know. The next story could be yours. Subscribe to The Vault so you don't miss what comes next.